Welcome to the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Mitchell, founder and CEO of Moyo Institute and lifelong spiritual seeker and energy worker, here for thoughtful conversations about health, healing, and happiness by, for, and about Black and African American women. Disclaimer, the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast does not provide medical advice. The opinions, experiences, and insights shared are for informational purposes only. Nothing shared in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other healthcare provider. Don't disregard or delay seeking it because of what you've heard on this podcast. Thank you. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Welcome to Love Letters to Our Bodies, conversations on health, healing, and happiness for, by, and about Black women. I'm your host, Gwendolyn Mitchell. Today, you're going to hear from a beautiful sister whose courage and commitment to her own well-being and to helping others is extraordinary. And let me tell you, that help is sorely needed. According to the International Myeloma Foundation, in the U.S., although African Americans are about 14% of the country's population, we constitute about 20% of all myeloma patients, and that incidence is actually growing. 1 in every 5 patients diagnosed with multiple myeloma in the U.S. is African American. Science has yet to find a cure for multiple myeloma, but our guest, Valarie Traynham, is not daunted by that. She's been on the cancer journey since 2015, and she's a self-described thriver, a patient leader who educates the community, shedding light on health disparities and being a voice and teacher for those who cannot advocate for themselves. Valarie ensures that patients know about what constitutes good health care, that they have access to clinical trials and understand treatment options. Also, that they feel supported. And in her me time, Valarie enjoys hiking, music, and friends. Welcome to Love Letters to Our Bodies, Valarie. I'm delighted that we get to spend this time together today.
Awesome. Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you for having me, Gwen. It's always good to work with you.
Thank you. And for our listeners, I'll just have full disclosure. We met when you attended a Love Letters to Our Bodies workshop a couple of years ago, and we had an instant connection. And I was so impressed with the work that you're doing in the field of multiple myeloma, and also just the information that you shared about your journey, that I thought it would be an inspiration to others as well. So thank you so much for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you.
So why don't we start with how you learned that you had multiple myeloma?
Yeah. So I can remember I started having just unexplained nosebleeds. That was the first kind of thing that started happening. That's how it started to unravel. Then there was the infections. Like I would get an infection and go to the doctor, get treated, get a round of antibiotics, and everything seemed to be fine. And then before I know it, here's another infection popping up. So it was nosebleeds, frequent infections. And then I had back pain. Back pain is very common with multiple myeloma. I was severely fatigued for no reason now. I would be tired. Obviously, I was working. I was heavily involved in my church. I was doing a lot of things. I was, an active person. But this kind of fatigue, it would just come out of nowhere. And I knew it wasn't normal. But those things didn't drive me to see a doctor right away, other than the infections. It wasn't until I got a bout of the flu that I couldn't shake. I had it for about 3 weeks. I had taken the over-the-counter stuff. I had went to the doctor. I'd gotten the Tamiflu, but I wasn't getting any better. And that's kind of what drove me to see my primary care physician. When I got in, I started explaining to her how long it had been going on and what I had been experiencing. And I'm very fortunate that she didn't play around. She said, "Hey, we're gonna order a panel of tests, and we're gonna figure out what this could be, what could be causing this." And I was very happy about that. That is not the case with a lot of myeloma patients. They do experience delays in diagnosis. But for me, it happened pretty quickly. When she ran those blood tests, she knew that something was off, and she immediately referred me to see a hematologist.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So, what is multiple myeloma?
Yeah, so multiple myeloma, it is a cancer of the plasma cells or of the bone marrow, not to be mistaken with melanoma, which is skin cancer. And a lot of people, when they hear those, they think, myeloma, oh, that's skin cancer. How'd you get skin cancer? So, yeah, but multiple myeloma affects the bone marrow, and it's the second most common blood cancer. It is a very rare cancer. In my circle, I see and talk to a lot of people that have multiple myeloma. So it doesn't seem as rare, but there are roughly about 32,000 cases per year. So it's still a rare cancer that most people have never heard of. I had never heard of it, when I was diagnosed. It's incurable, but highly treatable. I always like to say that because when I was diagnosed, all I heard was the incurable part. And when you hear incurable, a lot of times it strikes fear in your heart because it's okay, it's incurable. What am I going to do? But it is incurable, but it's very highly treatable. And in the 9 years that I've been diagnosed, patients are living longer. There are new novel therapies coming out. So it is not a death sentence, as many people may think it is when they hear that word incurable.
Mhm. Do they know in terms of the research what the causes are?
Yeah, yeah. Not officially. They look at it. Sometimes they see some environmental factors that could be attributed to it. Sometimes particularly in the Black community, we're seeing a lot of where family members have it. So we're trying to figure, is it hereditary or not? Like a parent and a child may have it, or the siblings may have it, or it's in the line somewhere. But right now, there are no known causes of it officially there.
Okay, okay. So you've talked about your symptoms, and so those are the primary symptoms that people have.
And so the most common symptoms, it goes by the name of CRAB, which is an acronym for elevated creatinine, renal insufficiency or kidney issues, anemia, or you're just extreme fatigue, you're just tired all the time. And the B is for bone lesions. You may be experiencing bone pain. And about 70% of all multiple myeloma patients present with some kind of bone pain. For a lot of patients, it could be pain in the back or in the ribs, in the femur bones. There are a lot of people that present with that. Those are the main symptoms. And there are other symptoms that kind of mimic other conditions, especially those conditions that are, within the Black community.
Okay, okay. So you mentioned that it was a rare disease, and like there are only about 32,000 cases in the US, but is it common among Black people?
Yeah, so it is very common amongst Black people. As a matter of fact, we are also noticing that African American patients are diagnosed at a younger age. So the average age at diagnosis is 69. Where we're seeing a lot of African American patients diagnosed 5 to 10 years younger. I was 42 at diagnosis, which is, extremely young. But yeah, it does affect the African American community at greater rates. We also find that if African Americans are treated early and treated the same as our white counterparts, that we actually have better results. So once we find out about this disease and we are diagnosed with it and we can get into treatment, we actually respond better to, medications, and we have outcomes, our counterpart there. So yeah. Another thing is that African Americans tend to receive a delay in diagnosis simply because it's not a very common cancer. A lot of doctors, at local community hospitals or places that most patients are seen first when they start developing signs and symptoms, The providers are just not familiar with it, and they don't always test for it. As I said, a lot of patients present with back pain or just excruciating pain, and they are often misdiagnosed. They're sent home with instructions to take ibuprofen, and it doesn't improve, then come back to see us. So it's delays in diagnosis that, really affects the African American population at greater occurrences than other ethnicities.
Okay. The Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast is sponsored by Moyo Institute Incorporated, a nonprofit organization offering heart-centered educational experiences, and the Lloyd Symington Foundation, which supports visionary grassroots cancer programs. All right. So what do you do? I mean, how do you move through life? What's important to you in terms of how you show up in the world, how you take care of yourself? What has been really helpful for you over the past 9 years?
Yeah. I would say the one main thing that has really kept me going is early on in the diagnosis, I had to learn that this was out of my control and there was nothing that I could do about it. So I think acceptance is very important. When you have that acceptance, it's like, okay, I have this. How am I going to live with it without it defining my life? As I said, the life expectancy for those with multiple myeloma has increased over the years. I can remember when I was diagnosed, it was 3 to 5 years. And it was 4 months before my 43rd birthday, I thought I would not live to see 50. So appreciating every day that I wake up is a gift, and learning to enjoy life, the small things in life, trying to avoid stress. Stress is a big thing. I know it's hard to avoid a lot of times, but I do my best to avoid stress because if it's out of my control, it should be out of my mind as well, is how I kind of look at it there. But really, just finding something to have hope in was a big deal for me. So I found since being on this journey, one of the things that keeps me going, keeps me motivated, keeps me grounded, it's been acceptance of the disease. Before I was diagnosed, I was I'll say it, a control freak. I was trying to control anything that I possibly could. A lot of times I didn't realize it, but that's, in hindsight, you can determine that. But I think acceptance has been the biggest thing, and knowing that this is out of my control. I need to live my best life that I can in spite of multiple myeloma. I can remember when I was diagnosed, I was just 3 or 4 months shy of my 43rd birthday. And at that time, the prognosis was 3 to 5 years. So I remember thinking, I'm not going to live to see 50. And that was hard for me. But I think once I accepted it, it was a lot easier because when you accept it, then you can move past it without dwelling on, oh, you have multiple myeloma, it's incurable. You can treat it, but it's probably going to come back again. When you accept it, it's okay. I have multiple myeloma. It may come back again. It might not come back again. And really just continuing to live your life. I think it's so important for you to find something to have hope in and that be your focus, as you're on the journey. I like to call it a journey. A lot of people, they don't like that word, but whatever you call it, what you're dealing with, for me, finding something to have hope in sustains me every single day.
Beautiful, beautiful. Some of the women in the workshops say that in hindsight, they look at the cancer as a gift because it has changed the way that they show up in the world. And you just said that you used to try to control everything, but you have let that go.
Yeah, you gotta let that go.
Do you see any like real benefits in terms of how it's grown you into the person that you are now?
Yeah, so I was one of those people before I was diagnosed. I used to hear people say, "Oh, okay, I got cancer and it's just a gift, best thing to happen to me." And I'm like, "You gotta be crazy. You got cancer. How can that be the best thing?" But now I'm one of those people. I can honestly say that it's the best thing that happened to me. Dealing with cancer, really, I found my purpose in it. And had I not been dealt the cancer hand, I would not have found my purpose. I would not be walking in my purpose. So there have been so many opportunities. I've learned so much along this cancer journey that it is changed me as a person. And had I not had that experience, then my life would be totally different. And I'm not saying necessarily in a worse way. It's just a different way. Things are totally different. And one thing that I say is that I've grown the most in is empathy, and that was something that I didn't really know what it was. I didn't have that before cancer. But now I can empathize with people a lot more because I get it. I try to look at things from a different perspective now. I try to ask more questions now because I'm always wanting to learn. I'm always wanting to better myself. And because of cancer, it's kind of forced me out of my shell to be able to do that.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Well, let me just say that I find you to be an inspiration. First of all, beautiful, beautiful. That goes without saying. And just the way that you show up with interest in everything and learning things, and not just learning, but sharing with others. So, really seeing the world broader than what's in it for me. Like, what's in it for me, and how can I help make this available to everyone else? I think that's really helpful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And that's what it's about. I always say one thing, the reason that I do what I do is to give back. And it's also to let people know that cancer is not a death sentence. When you hear the words, you have cancer, things are going to change. You're going to have to adjust to a new normal, but it doesn't mean it's the end of life. Cancer is a word, not a sentence. I read that somewhere and it kind of stuck with me like, what? It's a word, not a sentence. So I try to take little things like that with me as I go along the way, and I try to share that with others.
Beautiful. If you had a few words to say to anyone who happens to be listening, what would it be?
I would say you're not alone. A lot of people, they are diagnosed with cancer, they get on that cancer journey and they feel like, oh my God, why is this happening? I did all the right things. I ate right. I exercised. I meditated. I prayed. Why is this happening? I feel like it's just me. You're not alone. You didn't do anything wrong. It's one of those things that it's out of your control and it happens, but you're not alone. Reach out to others that's in your circle. When I say others, I mean other patients that have multiple myeloma or any cancer that you're dealing with. I think when we connect with others that have been there, they just get it. They know what you are going through. They can kind of guide you through the process of what you may have to go through. And again, they just get it. And that's important when you're on the cancer journey. You want to be around other people that just get it and they understand you. So I often think about, a lot of times, as you said, when people are diagnosed with cancer, they kind of slide into this deep depression or they just want to be alone or things are not going the way they want to. But I always say you have to. This is the time that you make it about you. This is when you put yourself at the top of every to-do list. And it's not being selfish, it's self-care because you have to take care of yourself first. You have to put yourself first. And when I think of self-care, I always talk to people about self-care, and I always say you have to do something. Doesn't matter how small or how big it is, but you have to put your well-being first, particularly when you're on this cancer journey. It could be something as simple as journaling or taking a walk out in nature. These are things that I do for self care. It doesn't cost anything. A lot of people think that when they think of self care as, oh, I have to go away on this elaborate vacation or I have to do something big and glorious when it comes to self care. But taking a moment just to meditate, sitting there, taking in a deep breath is a form of meditation. So don't think that it has to be something big and glamorous to take care of your self-care there. But it's so important, particularly within the Black community, because when it comes to self-care and just our mental health, it's often stigmatized. What happens in the Black house stays in the Black house. We don't talk about that outside. You don't talk about, if you have a cancer diagnosis, you don't talk about it. You keep it secret. And we're doing such an injustice to our communities when we do this. So I say part of that is just understand that it's okay if you need to talk to somebody. I say to my Black sisters, you are enough. You don't have to be all things to everybody. Take care of yourself. This is self-care. It's just realizing that you are who you are, that self-acceptance, and seeing the value that you hold. You are worthy. I say to my Black brothers, it's okay not to be okay. You don't always have to be that tough, manly man because you're going through things. Let that guard down and let somebody in to be able to support you in ways that you didn't even realize that you need support there. So I just say, don't leave out self-care when you're on the journey, because that is so important to help you stay focused as well.
What I love about the examples that you gave, and like going out in nature, spending a few moments focusing on your breath, doing things that don't cost a lot of money, because oftentimes when we think about women, think about self-care, Black women think about self-care, they think about getting their nails done, getting their hair done, and really some of those things, we just finished a recording segment on the carcinogens in Black beauty products, basically. And some of those things
Yes.
contributing to poor health. But going out in nature, what the Japanese call forest bathing, being out amongst the trees and letting them heal you, or walking on the sand on the beach, or spreading a little blanket out at your local park, having a picnic, something as simple as that can really be a way to support yourself.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
And I really love the idea of the breath because, we're all about the contemplation, about journaling, and about gratitude because, when we're faced with these things that are hard, it's really easy to get caught up in the thing that's not working and to overlook all the things that are going well. And so gratitude is like one of those things that is so essential to well-being and shifting perspective. So, yes, beautiful.
Yay.
Thank you, Val.
This has been fun. It's been a while since I did a podcast, but this is fun. Thank you for having me, Gwen. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. This has been really, really wonderful, and I really appreciate your taking time to be with us today. And we will be putting information in the show notes on how people can connect with you. But if you'd like to state that as well, that would be helpful.
Yeah. So I'm on some of the social media platforms. I am known as Myeloma Valarie. I'm on formerly Twitter or X and Instagram and Facebook. So I definitely encourage you to, follow me on those platforms. You can look me up. You can email me, Valarie@healthtree.org. I'm always available. I love to share with other individuals as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. This has been wonderful, and I can't wait to share this with our listeners.
Yes, thank you. My pleasure.
So, this is Gwen Mitchell with the Love Letters to Our Bodies podcast, and we will be back with you shortly to find out more about what we're doing in the world and more about the Love Letters to Our Bodies project. Visit us at moyoinstitute.org. It's MOYO institute.org. Thank you. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for listening to Love Letters to Our Bodies, conversations on health, healing, and happiness. To find out more about the Love Letters to Our Bodies project, visit our website at moyoinstitute.org. That's MOYO Institute.org. Follow us on social media and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. If there are topics you'd like for us to discuss, let us know. Remember, your body is beautiful, girlfriend. Love it.